Do you ever feel like your life is a race against the clock? That you would be able to accomplish so much more if only there was more time? I've definitely been there. There have been far too many examples of me rushing around at the last minute to accomplish something, whether it was in college when I'd have to literally run to various buildings on campus to submit an essay in time, or even in my first year of teaching when there was a paper jam when I needed to make copies of a final exam I was about to give to a class in 5 minutes. The feeling of running out of time has got to be one of the worst feelings ever, and it can be quite stressful. However, living a life of intention requires using one's time effectively. Even if we feel as though we don't have enough time, we must remember that we have the same amount of time in a day as every other person on earth, those living now and the greats that lived before us. Although the circumstances of one's life change throughout history and depending on the location from around the world, the amount of time we have is constant and should not be used as an excuse. Instead, how can we adjust our schedules to use time most effectively and for the most good? This is what we will address today.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Abundantly Minimal podcast. We are Jake and Sarah, and we are here to help you create abundance through living intentionally. Today's topic is all about time management, and we will address how to minimize distractions and make more effective use of the time that you have starting today. So we're going to go ahead and get started answering the first big question that I think has to be answered with time management and any or other sort of topic for that matter. But in this case, why is time management such an issue in the first place? So I'm going to go ahead and just get into my personal thoughts here. And Sarah, you can go ahead and jump in. But I find that a huge difficulty with time management for me is the whole balance literally of what is work and what is play, or in my mind, what is not related to my job. I mean, I think we all want to say that our personal lives are actually our priority. Our friends, our families, our relationships, our hobbies, what makes us happy. But too often, at least in my personal case, I guess I can't speak for you or for anybody else, but I feel like that if you looked at the actual schedule of most Americans in the United States, and this is just spitballing here, but I would dare say that if not spending the majority of their time, most people are probably spending more of their time on work outside of the business hours that the person may actually have to show up to their job and they actually have to work it, but more time outside of work, focusing on work than focusing on relationships, passions, hobbies, so on and so forth. Would you agree with me there?
Absolutely. I think even too, whether you're actually working on stuff for work outside of work or not, even the process of thinking about work, or maybe it's the case for some people like stressing out about work when they're not at work. So it can be a pretty major time commitment outside of your regular hours, I think, depending on the job. I know both of us do put in quite a few hours for our teaching jobs. And then in addition to, just the actual hours of putting in, but thinking about what you're going to do for different situations. And it's tough to escape, especially when careers are so linked to our identities. If someone's like, oh, what do you do? They don't really care probably. Well, it depends on the person, I guess, but maybe they're not asking you specifically like, what are your hobbies? Or, what are some fun personality characteristics about yourself? It might more so be like, well, what's your job?
I really hate that question just because, I mean, it makes you think that whatever you are as far as what you do for money is literally what defines you. And unfortunately, I think that we get brought up into that pretty much immediately after high school. I mean, even in high school, you are supposed to know what is it that you're going to do for the rest of your life. And you're like a 17, 18-year-old kid, and you barely, got past puberty. And now you're being asked to figure out, your whole entire life, or at least a big part of it, what you're going to do for the next however many years.
Well, no, I mean, it's a challenge.
But yeah, so I guess going back to the time management part, having that stress upon you of thinking about work in general. I know for me personally, like Sarah said, we're both teachers. I definitely spend, wouldn't you say, too much of my time thinking about work, or I spend a great deal of time thinking about work. I mean, you're never going to find it like on a, planner, I guess, or a sheet of paper with my goals, since we're talking about goals during our last episode. But I spend personally, I think, way too much time, just even if it's not actually planning for the job at hand, just thinking about the job at hand, worrying about the job at hand. And that's a lot of time that adds up. Sometimes you may not be able to avoid it, but if we're trying to get better at time management, I know myself personally, that is a issue that I definitely need to overcome.
Well, and absolutely. I mean, the whole point of this is to try to use time in a way that's most effective, that is productive, but also like healthful. We want to take back our time so we're not worrying as much or as stressed. The idea is that we can take back our time. So I think one really important topic to address has to do with distraction. And going back again to the teacher connection, I feel like through like my own educational experiences, as well as viewing educational like experiences of younger ones, I teach middle school students predominantly. And I think distraction is such a key challenge that a lot of us face, and myself included. There's a lot, especially online or with, any electronic device, there's a lot to get distracted by. And I think, unfortunately, this can really cut into what we're able to do. And I know, for myself, as we talked about, I guess, a little bit last week, there's a lot of goals and things I would like to accomplish in my life. But distractions, even though they can seem benign and not like that big of a deal when they're actually happening, these distractions can really derail our plans to accomplish our goals. And so that's just something to really, start noticing and paying attention to, these different types of distractions. One of the biggest distractions, I think, is
Facebook.
Well, maybe that was for you.
Oops.
I think social media can be a major distraction for a lot of people. I know for myself, I largely, have avoided that until just with starting Abundantly Minimal. I'm doing social media stuff, but
doing social media right now, right?
Well, kind of, I guess. But anyway, I think that it's very easy for us to get really sucked into what's happening on social media. I mean, it's amazing how you can just passively waste hours. Like if you were to count up, even if, here's a little challenge, your next day, if you feel like you might be spending too much time on social media, I'd encourage you to time yourself total on how long you spend on social media. Like keep it on like a stopwatch. And even if you're doing little bits here and there, I'd be really curious to hear how long you spend on social media. Again, I just have gotten started into it, and I don't spend that long on it, but it does eat up time, whether it's, scrolling through things before bed, like I hear is a common thing, or when you first wake up, or just when you are supposed to be working on something and you're scrolling through. This is all valuable time that, yes, maybe you feel like you get some value from it, but is it more so just, that surface level value of being interested to hear or to see what other people are doing, or is it actually enriching your life? So I think that's a really great thing to look at when we're trying to identify distractions. And then also, I think the concept of multitasking is also important to bring up, because I think I've always been kind of a crazy, well, somewhat of a crazy person, I feel like, trying to do too many things at once.
You said had been?
All right. I still am a bit of a crazy person.
There we go.
But with that, I feel like sometimes I'll have multiple things going at the same time. And, I'm watching some YouTube videos. Well, I'm working on this. Well, I'm doing this. But the truth is, as science has suggested, as well as, I feel like I've kind of figured this out myself now, you can't truly multitask. If you're going to be focusing on, let's say watching a YouTube video while you're also working on something, yeah, you might be getting a little bit done on both ends, but to be honest, your brain can really only focus on one thing at a time. And so maybe instead my brain is for a few seconds listening to the video, but then it turns off and is focused on the whatever else I'm working on. Like, it kind of goes back and forth. So to truly start living a more intentional life with our time, I think just practicing being focused and the ability to focus is really critical, because the multitasking, I feel like, can just, make us think we're doing more than we actually are. And at the end of the day, you end up not accomplishing as much as you'd hope.
I think multitasking really just sets you up for failure, honestly. Because, whenever I've multitasked or claimed that I was multitasking, for those of you who don't know me, which is probably the majority of you, or maybe not actually, I don't know, depending on who's listening, but I'm very horrible at doing definitely multiple tasks at once, and I'm very slow, I would say, at doing even a single task at once. It may have something to do with just my unfortunate perfectionistic tendencies, but I just take a really long time to do anything.
I think just ultimately with distractions, a really great action step would be to think about what is it in your life that is causing you the most distraction. Basically, little pockets of your time that you feel like are being used for something that's not helping you accomplish your goals or contribute meaning to your life. Identifying those is one of the first steps to be aware of what's going on and how your time is being spent.
So, dealing with distraction? Have we got a solution for you? Or suggestions, right? Take what you will. This is just some ideas that have worked for us, but obviously we are all our own different people, and what works for one will not necessarily work for the next. But getting right into it. For those of you out there who, like me, you are very easily distractible, even, literally just by anything, right? Even a little noise. Then a good suggestion I would have that might be of use to you would be a website called Pomodoro. Am I saying that right? Pomodoro?
I think it's like Pomodoro, like the tomato
Pomodoro.
sauce.
Okay, it's like the tomato website, I call it, the tomato website. Because basically what happens, for those of you who are unfamiliar, if you go on this website, you basically, after you set up a little account on there with your email, you're going to go ahead and set a time limit that you want to go ahead and be productive for. So I think the default is like 25 minutes of work. And then after you have completed that 25 minutes of work, it'll give you a 5-minute grace period where you are supposed to go ahead and just do whatever you want besides working, whether you want to get up and make a sandwich or, use the throne, so to speak, or whatever, whatever it might be. You can go ahead and do that. And then with the understanding that you come back, you like that analogy, you come back for the next 25 minutes to work yet again. I know I found this particularly useful back in my college days for writing papers. Especially this one, 25-page paper I had to write. Gosh, that was awful. But I went to the library. I put on my tomato website. I get my 25 minutes in. And once you've done those 25 minutes, you get a tomato. And you have the opportunity also to write in what it was that you accomplished in those 25 minutes. And it keeps track of everything that you've ever done on that account for the website. And you get to keep track of all of your tomatoes. But if you do not keep with the time limit, then you squash that tomato and you have to grow it all over again, so to speak. So for those of you who like to have, I work this much time and then I rest this much time, I highly suggest that website. It's very, very handy. Especially, like I said, I used it mostly for papers. I don't really use it much now, but I think that I might actually go back to that and try it again, because there's definitely activities I do now that I could do a bit faster. Another suggestion for time management is the Facebook Fest. That was a little too dramatic, wasn't it?
It's okay.
It's all right. So, but the Facebook fast, or insert whatever social media you want to, the Twitter fast, the Instagram fast, the Snapchat fast, but getting rid of your social media for a time period. Yes, I said it. You can do it. I believe in you. But getting rid of that social media for a time that you go ahead and you choose. Because like Sarah was saying earlier, social media, it's great. But at the same time, if you are going on there like I would typically do to avoid doing whatever the task is that you have before you, such as in my case, planning a lesson or grading homework or insert other activity, then it's not really much of a healthy activity, of time efficient activity. Now, if you legitimately enjoy going on Facebook and scrolling through your feed and seeing what everybody else is doing, that's great, and do that. But if you go to Facebook or whatever other social media site is simply for a pacifier, then maybe you want to think about lessening your exposure to that particular site. I know
or your dependence
on it. Yeah, because I know for me, I tried the Facebook fast. And I'm at the point now, I was off of it for like 2 months, I think.
Probably.
2 months. And now that I've gone back, it's mostly just been in case there are long lost friends or whatnot that need to get into contact with me, or vice versa, me contact them. So if you're listening, send me a Facebook message. But just it's there for more so that purpose, instead of me just going on there just to aimlessly scroll, because I'd rather not do the work that I actually need to go ahead and do. I definitely use it a lot differently now. I use it a lot more intentionally now. So take it or leave it. That would be something I'd suggest there. So those are just a few suggestions that I have. Again, what works for me may not work for you. So take what sounds good and leave out the rest. And we're definitely not the people with all the answers, but just some suggestions.
But what if you feel like you're not really distracted that much, or you don't really have certain time wasters that are taking up your day, but you still feel like you can't manage your workload, or you want more for your life, you want to live more intentionally, and you just don't feel like you've got the time? Well, I think then the best thing to do is to try to find pockets of time within the day. Now, with this time, this could be a variety of things. So, one layer of these pockets of time are maybe little bits of time where, you don't have complete control over what's going on, but you can have control of your mind during this time. And so you can be using your mind during this time in a way that fulfills you. So a perfect example would be a commute. For many people who are, in my eyes, not lucky enough to work from home, you are likely spending a certain amount of time each day either driving to work, riding to work on a train or bus or whatever, or even walking to work. Somehow you're getting yourself from point A to point B. And during this time, you may already be taking advantage of listening to different things, maybe listening to a cool podcast like the Abundantly Minimal podcast. There's a lot of great podcasts out there.
But we're awesome.
We're working on it. But anyway, so you may already be using this time to listen to music or do something, but what if you were to use this time in a way that overall really helped your health or well-being or made you happier? I think that this commute time can be really special in a way to help think about different issues that you're having or that you're trying to work through. Maybe it's a great time to catch up on some inspiration for whatever your career path is or your hobbies are, whether that's in podcast or other types of media. Maybe it's a chance to try meditation. Yeah, you don't have to be seated on a floor, quiet place to be meditating. You can I'm not the biggest meditation expert, but the idea is that you can, practice that mindfulness anywhere. And so I think if you do feel like you're someone who is suffering from a lot of stress, see how you can utilize your commute time as a way to improve your overall well-being. You can utilize little moments throughout your day as well. Even if it feels like certain times it's like, 5 minutes here, 10 minutes here. Is there something that you can be utilizing those little moments for. Again, it doesn't have to be an actual activity, but if there's even just some mindfulness practices or even just increasing a little physical activity in those, off moments, if you can go for a walk around the office or classroom in my case or whatever, utilize those moments and, just try to focus on maximizing your actions during that time. I think doing more with less can also be effective. And again, we're not trying to pack more things into your schedule, but thinking about, how can you be, I guess, using your time smarter rather than harder. That's not exactly the analogy I'm going for is like you work smarter, not harder. But again, using time more effectively, I think is the goal here. I think one of the most important conversations to have is, do you have to do it all? I know I have operated under the mindset of trying to be this superhero and do everything I possibly can. I mean, some of that does give me good value, and I do feel like, certain things I am able to accomplish it, even if it can be a little demanding. But I think when you more objectively look at the things you're doing, say, hold on a second. Do I actually need to be doing this? Do I need to be doing this now? I'm not saying to go slack off on your job or anything, but I think there's a lot of activities and tasks we do in our life that if we think from, hey, do I actually need to do this? Then it can be really effective. I mean, side note, I have stopped wearing makeup. I mean, I never really wore that much, but for the most part, I've stopped wearing makeup completely to work. And yeah, I don't think I look as good some days, but
you look great.
Aw. But, it saved me a good 5 to 10 minutes every morning. And so now I'm waking up really late before I go to...
You're saving like an hour of your life then that you're not
each
using
week
for the...
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it adds up. So, that's little easy moments there. And again, you might think, well, of course I'm going to wear makeup. It's like, that's a daily practice or whatever it is for you. That's like a daily practice. But if you think, do I have to do that? Does that give me value to do that? Is it worth it? And it's great if it is, but if it's not, little pockets of time do add up. And in that case, I get to sleep more. And Jake is very passionate about sleep.
I do love sleep. But before I go into that nice transition you set up for me here, though, I did want to jump off of what you were talking about with the makeup thing. Because it really, once you start, I guess, if you're thinking about time management, whether it's with makeup or doing your hair in the morning, really, you start thinking about when you start with a couple of different choices you make, you really start assessing the value of almost every little activity that you do. I know one that's directly related to work is email. All right. Since we were just talking about social media and technology and whatnot, I know for me, I used to, and I'd be lying if I said I've gotten over it perfectly, but the stress of you've got an email, you have to respond to it right away. If you really stop and think about it, and again, I'm not going to pretend that I understand the circumstances of every single job. I can just speak to my own experience. But in the experience for me, most of the emails I get from parents, other staff members, so on and so forth, I mean, I'm not saying I don't reply to them. I do. But reply to them on your own time and under your own terms. Now, again, don't wait like 2 weeks to go ahead before you reply to this email. But, I mean, usually now with parents, if a parent sends me an email, I don't worry about responding to it until at the earliest, at the end of that school day. Or if somebody sends me an email like over the weekend and it's not something that has to be like immediately addressed, like a homework question, for example, I wait now to respond to it until the first work day of the week. All right. So just thinking about, again, you are worth more than your job or activities, rituals that we all do, whether it's the makeup, whether it's, like I used to style my hair with this really, I don't even know what it was. Gel, like, I don't know if it was gel or what it is, putty, but whatever it was, I mean, it didn't look bad. I think it looked great. I think it looked pretty good, but it at the end of the day, it didn't really add value to my life. I feel like I look okay without it, and I don't feel bad about answering my email a little bit later. So eliminating those little stresses helps you prioritize what actually is important and has to get done earlier. But you wanted to talk about sleep, yes?
Yes. And more importantly, you wanted to talk about sleep.
Just a little sidebar. All right. I love sleeping. And we got some really nice bed sheets lately. I think it was yesterday from when we're putting this in. Not going to name drop. Not going to name names, but these bed sheets are to die for. So I'm really enjoying sleep these days. Not that I never did. But let's talk about sleep in all seriousness. Do you get enough sleep?
Nope. Oh, was that rhetorical?
It was rhetorical, but if you answered it out loud, that is great. If the answer is no, here's my question for you. Again, answer it out loud if you want to. Why don't you? So I'm going to ask you that, Sarah. Why don't you get enough sleep?
Well, I have some issues, but...
Okay, well, be specific, as I would say, as a teacher.
Well, for me, I mean, my answer is going to be weird and kind of different, but I have way too much energy.
Yeah, that is a very, I don't know. But, maybe everyone who's listening is really energetic just like you. I have no idea.
I don't know. I've never met I don't know. This is not the point of the podcast episode. My abnormal amounts of energy without any caffeine.
That's going to be a future episode. But I think going back to the point here, I like how we do these like circles of where we're going. But I think that it's important to go ahead and actually prioritize sleep and plan for sleep and make it a critical pillar of your existence. And here's why I say that. If you don't sleep, then your waking life is going to be of a lower quality than if you had slept. Not saying that your life's going to suck because you haven't slept, but I know at least for me and Sarah, I think I can kind of speak for you here too. The more that we sleep and the higher quality sleep that we get, then the better I think that we're going to feel in our day-to-day existence. That's why I went off on this tangent about these new bed sheets, is that, yes, I did admittedly, follow my own advice and didn't sleep too much the night before recording this, but those bed sheets were really nice and very comfy and improved the quality of sleep that I did have. So, sidebar, spoil yourself if you can on your bedding. You use it for 1/3 of your life, or at least you should if you get your sleep. So, go to town with that. Get some nice bed sheets. Organic cotton all the way. But anyway, plan that time. I know that the days that I haven't, I felt horrible. I know the days that I have felt great. So, making sure that you make a priority out of sleeping, because your health is important. I don't care what else that you're doing. I don't care what job you're working or job that you're not working. Get your sleep, because it's going to improve the experiences that you have. I think that in almost any case.
Absolutely. And let that just be connected to health as a whole and not just sleep. If you're eating right, if you are taking care of, hygiene, treating yourself that way. I mean, there's a variety of things, but anything related to your health, I do really feel like is an investment. There will be future podcast episodes that address health as a whole. But those are all great ways to, kind of invest in yourself. And I think that's really critical.
But if you're struggling with like adding in these different healthy habits, because I think that's a problem for a lot of people, just start with one. Like, let's say sleep is just what you start with. I mean, I'm not saying like don't shower, because I don't know if your fellow human beings are going to be too happy with you after like a week of that. But I mean, as far as sleep or eating right or exercise or whatnot, just build. I mean, maybe just worry about the sleep thing for like a week or two. Get yourself solid on that. I know I'm big on, building. I can't do everything at once.
So hopefully today's episode added value to you. If you've enjoyed it, we'd love for you to subscribe to our podcast. And if you'd like, give us a rating and review on whatever platform you're listening to this on. We really enjoyed talking to you guys today and look forward to hearing some of your feedback. So thanks so much for listening, and we will talk to you guys soon.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.